Well, hello. Welcome to One Man's Faith today, whichever day it is you're seeing this show. And hey, I'm glad you're with me. We're going to continue to look at the fall feasts, which are going on right now. And before we get there, though, let me just say that we will be having the movie, Do You Believe? On, was it October 6th? There it is, October 6th at 7 o'clock. Great movie. Come on out and see it. It's about 12 people whose lives end up intersecting, and it's based on how they handle their belief in who Jesus is. Very good. It's a very good show. I bring somebody, especially someone who doesn't know the Lord, because it will speak to them. So October 6th, Do You Believe? And the following month, just to let you know, we're going to have the movie Gifted Hands. Gifted Hands, it's the story of Ben Carson, who is running for president, and I endorse him. So you know what that means? So it's about his life. And it's an excellent movie to understand this man. And so I would encourage you. I think that is November 3rd. So put that down on your calendar. October 6th, Do You Believe? November 3rd, Gifted Hands. Great movie. Don't miss it. It stars Cuba Gooding Jr. As Ben Carson. So okay, now that we got all those things out of the way. Let's go to our series that we've been working on. This is the kind of a short series, but this is a very and can be a very important and critical time in our lives, and I think even more, especially in the life of Israel. As I've said before, the 27th, which is in 2 weeks, will be the start of the Feast of Tabernacles, and it happens to also be the 27th will be the night of the blood moon, the last of 4. We had one last year at Passover. 7 months later, we had another on the Feast of Tabernacles. Then this year we had a third one on the Feast of Passover, and the fourth one will occur on the evening starting the Feast of Tabernacles. Now, this has only occurred several times in the history of Israel. One of the times was the 6-Day War. The time before that was the year that Israel became a nation, 1948. And so it's a possibility that something could happen that could be dramatic. That's speculation, okay? But it's interesting because this is a time of the feast, and I want to show you that they're going to tie in to the second coming of Jesus, okay? That's where we're headed with this. Plus, the Bible indicates that these feasts are perpetual. They never end. Based on that, it's very possible that you and I will be celebrating these feasts, especially these last 3, when we go into the millennial kingdom, the 1,000-year reign of Jesus. Because it states to us that a nation that does not celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles will have no rain that year. Interesting. Okay? So these are feasts. Now we've looked at the fact that that Jesus has already fulfilled the first 4. Passover, unleavened bread, first fruits, and Pentecost or Shavuot, okay? Jesus has fulfilled those. So we have these 3 that are coming, and if he fulfilled the 4, I think we can assume correctly that he will be the one fulfilling the last 3. We talked too about what I call the left-hand rule. I didn't make this up, but if you'll look at the Bible, God gave the Hebrew alphabet. And the Hebrew alphabet is different from the American alphabet or any other alphabet, really, I believe, in that it's not just a bunch of letters that don't do anything until you put them together and form words, but each letter of the Hebrew alphabet, and there's only 22, have a meaning. They have a meaning, which is really interesting. And so even sometimes when you put the Hebrew letters together, they mean more than if they were just sitting there, okay? It's an interesting phenomenon. God gave that. God set it up so that they are read from right to left, which is backwards from us. Or maybe it's forward and we're backwards. I don't know. It was God who set up the fact that the world is on a lunar calendar. Man made the solar. God, even from the beginning, in Genesis chapter 1, he would say, and it was evening and morning the first day. It was evening and morning the second day. God set that up. And so God's ways are a little different from ours. And even though we think we have it down as to how the second coming is going to happen, I think we're going to be surprised. Because God isn't necessarily Gentile. He has his own way, and they seem to lean toward what the Hebrews did because he made them. He formed the nation. He set it all up. It's very possible, too, that the main language before the Tower of Babel was Hebraic. It's possible that everything was read from right to left before the fall. I'm just saying. Because we can't assume that our way of thinking is the correct way of thinking. We have got to see the Word of God. We've got to see these feasts and everything through the eyes of Jesus, through the eyes of God, okay, to really understand what's going on. So when we started looking at these feasts, we were looking at the fact in Leviticus 23, it says that these are the appointed times of the Lord, holy assemblies which you can proclaim at the times appointed for them. So man did not set up when these feasts occur. Man did not do that. God did, and God said, here's where they will occur. In the month of Nisan, which happens to be at our time, March, April, in the month of Nisan, on the 14th day will be the Passover. On the 15th day starts the Feast of Unleavened Breads, and the day after the Sabbath during that 7-day period will be the Feast of First Fruits. And he says, from the Feast of Unleavened Bread, you will count 50 days. Actually, you'll count 7 Sabbaths, which is 7 times 7, and then it says, but on the 50th day, you will celebrate the Feast of Weeks, or Shavuot, or what we call Pentecost. Pentecost being 50, Penta being 50, okay? So God set those up, and then he says, listen, on the first of the 7th month, you will blow the trumpet, and it will be the start of the year. Now, Nisan, as we looked, is already the first month like our January is. But theirs starts in somewhere April, March, April. 7 months later is the month of Tishri, which we're in right now. As a matter of fact, Sunday night to Monday was the first of Tishri, and that was the Feast of Trumpets. the Feast of Trumpets, and that is going to be significant because 1 Corinthians tells us that at the last trump, and we looked at this, at the last trump, we will rise. Well, if you're Hebraic, you understand that that term, the last trump, is significant to the Feast of Trumpets. It's part of, I believe we talked about this, on the Feast of Trumpets, they blow the shofar, which is a ram's horn, 100 times. They do it with staccato notes and kind of long notes, and then a long blast, and then the 100th blast, which is called the last trump, is what is called the Tekiah Gadola, the long blast. And that is what's referred to by Paul. At the sound of the last trump, the dead will rise. And so we looked at that as, that the Feast of Trumpets is tied to our resurrection. Okay? It's tied to our resurrection. So some Feast of Trumpet day in the future, we will be resurrected. That's what that says. Now, I didn't hear a trump, and nobody I've talked to at my church heard a trump, and we're still here. So that means it didn't occur this time. It did not occur. And we know that there's some things that have to occur before we can even come close to that. Did you realize that biblically, I think according to Psalm 83, Damascus has to be totally obliterated? That's got to occur before. In Ezekiel, or is it Jeremiah? Forgot which one. I think it's Ezekiel. It talks about the fact that Egypt has to be, in a sense, obliterated. Man nor beast will be able to live in the land of Egypt for 40 years. That hasn't occurred either. All right, that gives you two things to think about real quick while we take a break. If we got to do that, we got to pay somebody. So let's take a break, and I'll be right back.